Koinonia. I feel like Maddie's going to come up and talk about that in a minute. Also, we've had a couple of dates flying around for Summer of Sonship. I wanted to clarify, these are the firm, final, confirmed dates. July 2nd through 7th for that, and registration will open for that soon. The team is working on that now. And one other thing, I remember, okay. The Recycle Local trailer out there. Can we please, when we're donating stuff for that, can we please open the trailer doors, hop up onto the trailer, and take the stuff? Mark says that's the front of the trailer. To me, that seems like the back of the trailer, but the far end of the trailer is where we...
Do you connect the back of the trailer to the tractor?
No, he's right. Doesn't connect in my head. It's broken here. But, so please, if you have the physical ability, please take your things all the way to the back so we can fill the truck from the far end toward the doors. It's the nose, since we're all getting along on that now. Maddie, are you ready to come?
So when's cleaning? April 21st. From when to when?
And Diane's going to post on Facebook, and you're going to...
Don't sign up.
Because?
You're doing tech things.
Chris, you're not allowed to answer. What?
Okay, so Koinonia Family Gathering is Sunday, April 25th to 29th. So if you like crews needed for that weekend, I need some guys to help me set up things and places, because what we're doing is workshops, like different workshops. We're going to have 4 areas in the building where there's like this kind of setup for teachings. So I need some guys. I'm thinking we'll do it early in the week, so probably Wednesday. So if you just have availability in the beginning of the week, contact me. Just we have to move some chairs and just rearrange some things around the building a little bit. So I need that. Something else I need. Some people are traveling in. A lot of people are traveling in, so we do need some rides to and from airports. So if you have availability to do that, let me know. I have some dates that need filled right now. I don't have too many right now, but they are growing, so they're going to keep coming in. Also, if you're planning to come and you haven't registered, please do that. I only have like 25 registered. I know there's a lot more coming, but it just really helps in the whole planning part of things if you register. So if you're planning to come, you should do that. If you have any extra cars, I know it's not a very common thing, but if you have extra cars, we have people traveling in that don't really have the funds to rent a car, but they can drive. So if you have a car that you are willing to let them drive, that would be great. I'm trying to think of other things I need. Diane, do you think of anything? Oh, yeah. So obviously it's a whole weekend long. So if we could just have, like, together, if we can just watch the building, kind of treat it like our home, because we're going to have a lot of guests.
If you have a clean home.
Yeah. Don't treat it like a messy home. Yeah, good point. So yeah, we obviously have cleaning people here, but I think it would be good for us all to contribute that weekend since it's so many days, and like we want to show people our best. You know, people are going to be coming in, so we want it to look good. So if you just keep an eye on the whole place during that weekend, and then also we're going to ask, if you have a key to the building, we're going to ask you guys kind of to rotate to lock up, open up. So if you are a key holder, you'll be asked to do something like that. Does anybody have any questions about the weekend? I know it's a lot. It's intense. Anybody? No? Thanks. Okay, yeah, if you have any questions or if you want to help more, you can contact me. Things are going to come up as it gets closer, but yeah. Who's next? Aaron wrote. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Shocking. Shocking. Exciting. It's that. All right, so last month I didn't come up and share on the finances. probably should have. So, I mean, I'm just going to be candid, right? Because that's what I do. And so we were doing pretty good. And when I say doing pretty good, like we had a stretch of about 3 months where we were covering our expenses for the month. And so just to kind of give you, and so last month we didn't. Obviously, that's probably what you thought I was going to get at. So giving for the month of January was, I can share that number? All right, just shy of $22,000, okay? Giving for the month of February was $6,000 less than that, so about $16,000, which has us at a deficit of about $5,000 in terms of our operational cost. So that's what I got to share about that. You know, a couple things that happened coming out of January. I think a lot of people are inspired to give. It's a new year. It's all this. And so we actually saw this the last couple years, and then so you see a little bit of a little bit less in February, but honestly, like this February, we saw a lot less. And so our budget is sort of built on about $22,000. Our budget for the year is built at about $22,000 a month, okay? And that's a plan. With that plan, that has us at a deficit of about $15,000 for the year, okay? So that's not the break even. That's a reduction in a negative. So we're not in danger of closing down, anything like that. I mean, we have funds available, but we have to steward and we have to take care of what we have. And you know, one of the things that we did, we looked at our revenue and we also looked at our expenses. And we don't have a lot of programs, a lot of things that we're doing. Okay, so it's not like, hey, well let's you know, cut out $3,000 from the youth ministry or from the kids ministry or something like that a month because we don't budget for that. Okay, so I would just ask that we this is our home, and you know, probably this needs to go to a broader message on a Sunday gathering as well. You know, that the bills stay the same every month. So if you're traveling or if you do something for a month or whatever, our house is still in need of turning the lights on and that type of thing, okay? So speaking about some things that we'd like to do, from a CapEx standpoint, like we haven't had a capital, okay, from a capital expenditure. So things above and beyond what we need to do. So the classroom area, ABC over there, it's the big area that we'll put tables out and where we have the kids' classes and do different things like that. And we eat a lot of food over there. So, like, I'll say in hindsight, might not have been the best idea to carpet that whole area, but we did several years ago. But just if you go and see that area, it's kind of like if that's, hey, this is our place, it kind of looks kind of bad. So we're actually considering some options to pull up the carpet. One would be putting down the LVT, the vinyl tile stuff. Another option might be to just currently, you know, perhaps stain the concrete, because that's something that can be done and look okay. But both of those are going to be somewhere in that $2,000 to $5,000 range. The LVT is going to be close to probably $5,000, with us doing a lot of the labor, or all the labor. So that's something that we've got out there, and we need to figure out how we're going to do that. So beginning that dialogue right now to say, you know, be thinking about that, and you know, how we can support that. A couple other things that we have here. So our lighting out here is also another area that we have. So we got these LEDs a few years ago. And, you know, so we're an old warehouse, right? And that's why we've got the metal halide, I don't know what you call those, but those, all right, which we can't really do a lot. They're not dimmable. They're not much of any of that. So it's kind of, I don't want to say hard to get the mood right with those or to adjust them. You know, I think there's times where we want a little bit more intimacy and don't want to look up and be blinded and things like that. So we put these LEDs in, and so, but some of those are beginning to need replaced. And then we're also having some on the stage that are starting to go. So this is like this is an expense that we didn't budget for this year, but it's likely going to hit us at some point this year. So we just have to be thinking about those things. So probably over the next month or so, we're really going to be very intentional about talking about these things that are coming up, okay? Because this is our building and this is our home, and we have to do some things to make sure that we maintain it, okay? All right. I don't know who follows me, but you got it better. Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hey. So we kind of, you may or may not have heard, this month of March, we're going to be having a big focus on parenting, equipping, encouraging, challenging us all in our parenting. And so that was something that has been on Ben and I's heart, being that we're parents. And so one thing that we wanted to encourage you a little, or encourage all of us in, is especially as it pertains with our family here at Who, is our involvement with our kids. And I was going to kind of have Ben share a verse to start.
All right. You don't have to go here, but in Deuteronomy 11, we actually believe in the Old Testament here. We like the Old Testament. It's cool. You should read Deuteronomy 11. Yeah, thanks. You should read this chapter. It's really good. But a section that comes starting in verse 18, it's talking about it's really talking about obedience, but it's talking about the many things that the Lord has done. But it says, "You shall therefore impress these words of mine on your heart and on your soul, and you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and you shall be as and they shall be as frontals on your forehead. You shall teach them to your sons, talking of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk along the road, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you should write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, so that your days and the days of your sons will be multiplied on the land which the Lord swore to your fathers to give them, as long as the heavens remain above the earth." I actually really like that verse, especially it coming from the Old Testament, because I think it really speaks of culture and what culture should look like. Like culture, if you take it from a very Old Testament standpoint, you could say that that's religion, but that sounds like culture to me. Culture surrounds us. Culture is the things that we do it's the things that we do every day. And it could be a frontal on your forehead. It's part of it, it's on your hand, it's written on your soul. It's all these things that make up everything about us that people see and people recognize and people know, that don't necessarily need to be religious. They don't need to be religious. They could be very, very cultural. So I know a couple weeks ago I talked to you guys about our thoughts with our kids in worship. We believe that our kids are part of our worship culture, not just, hey, we don't have coverage for kids from X amount of time to X amount of time. It's not a coverage issue, it's a culture issue. So we wanted to be even more intentional and thoughtful about how we're even viewing our kids and how they relate into our culture overall as Who.
Yeah, and so it's funny, a few years ago I was doing this study with a young group of girls, and we were talking about this concept of integrity, which I feel like we here in our culture would probably even use the word sonship, who we are as daughters and sons. But this definition struck me really strongly. It said, integrity is to be who you are everywhere that you go. And in relation to our kids, I was just thinking how important it is to be connected and a part of all the things that they do in all the facets of their life. And it doesn't mean that you're coaching every single team and that everything that you do, you're involved in directly, but we're directly involved in the hearts of our kids in everything that they do. And so, recently I was personally convicted, and I thought, well, maybe I'm not alone, and we're family, so I'm bringing it up to us together. But I could very easily have fallen into this routine of coming here and thinking, this is my break. Like, I homeschool my kids, I'm with my kids all the time, I come to church, this is my break from my kids. And I was really challenged and convicted of the Lord in my heart that in everything, this is such an important part of their development and who they are, even, as an extension of our home. And so I am going to sit with the Lord and see how should I be involved. And again, that doesn't mean I'm saying every single person who has a kid should be a teacher in one of the classrooms, but that we're purposely recognizing the value and connecting with it. And I think as mothers and fathers of our natural kids, we should have the greatest opportunity to remind our kids of who they are. And the more that, especially when they're younger, the more presence that we have in all of those areas, it's just a continual calling up of seeing and reminding them of who they are. And so I just felt like putting that out to us as a family and sit with the Father, what does that look like for me? Maybe it's a conversation. What did you learn in kids' church? What did you affect the environment around you? I constantly tell my kids, like, you're a leader. You affect any environment that you walk into for the good or for the bad. You get to choose, but the more that we're connected in all of these different areas, and specifically in kids' church, I don't know, do we call it that? But our kids, our kids' ministry, there's so much growth and value and beauty that happens, but let's not miss out on opportunity to even be with our kids in every area, really.
Yeah, so Jen named a very practical thing that we should be doing. I don't think there's a Sunday that should go by that we don't ask our kids who are in there with Jocelyn, like, tell me what happened in there, because you're not going to be in there every Sunday. So I would really, really like I would really love to hear that you guys have made that part of your culture, that you're actually having a conversation with your kids about what they experienced inside there. I think another really practical thing that you can do is actually stop and talk to Jocelyn. Like, stop, talk to Jocelyn, and actually let her heart rub off on you a little bit. Stop and talk to Kendall and let his heart rub off on you a little bit for our kids. We know you have a great heart for your kids, but sometimes we need the heart for other kids, right? So stop and talk to them and ask them what's happening. And then, I'm just going to say one more thing. And then another thing is, when you're sitting in here and you're not in there, I know we could ask our kids, hey, what did you do in there? But it would be equally awesome for you to tell them what was going on in here. So while you could sit here and you could probably drink up of everything that's being taught in here, as a parent, what we should actually be doing is taking that in, consuming it, and then figuring out a way that we can actually give that to our children so that they're experiencing also. They don't have to actually be in here to learn the things that we're learning in here. So when we're talking about, really being connected, like Jen said, it doesn't mean that you're going over there every Sunday, but it does mean that you are understanding what's happening with your kids in there, and they actually understand what's happening in here, and that's worship, the message. And you know what would be an awesome time, because Aaron talked about this, even when we're giving offering, I would be connected to your kids on how important it is to give and why it's important to give. All right? These are all parts of our culture, and they're all parts of worshiping the Father. So if we just take them for granted, or just like, oh, there's the time we do the offering, so let's get this over with, we're missing opportunities to ingrain things into our kids and make it cultural.
I was just going to mention when he said about asking Jocelyn, also just, or whoever's with the kids, Kendall, like, how is Jonah? How is Chofi? Like, because I remember there was this one Wednesday where it was a rough night with the kids that were there, and we as parents were called then into Sunday to be a presence there, and Jocelyn did a really incredible activity with just reminding of who they are and what they bring to the kids as a group. But that's another opportunity to, when we as fathers and mothers are able to have our presence there in the group and to be able to ask, how is my child? Not only just get their heart for them, but how are they doing in there, and how can I support all that you're pouring into our kids?
Good evening.
I'm so sorry. I forgot something. Jocelyn asked me to talk about the kids for the weekend of the family gathering. So I just figured just coming off of that. Your kids are welcome that weekend. She is planning a really awesome time for them. Yeah, it's really a kids' koinonia. She's linking what we're doing in here to her activities and her lessons there. She's working with some moms. So don't make plans for your kids the whole weekend. Like, make them part of it. I think that's how, we can work this koinonia into the whole family and not just the adults.
Love it.
So include your kids in the weekend. Don't count them out for the whole weekend, because she has some awesome stuff, I'm sure. K to 6.
Yeah.
I think we're doing grades. Yeah, K to 6. Yeah, so if they're in those grades, you can do that. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So yeah, really. Oh, man. All right, so shortly after the last time I got up and talked to you guys, after that message went out about Titus and pursuing relationships with each other, I started thinking more along the lines of one of our core things that we're going to be doing this year is reconciliation of relationships. So one of the things the Lord laid on my heart was Philemon. And from this time on, we're going to refer to him as Phil, just for making it easy. So Phil, just to give you a little backstory, was one of Paul's greatest friends. He was a guy that was always with Paul, always hanging out with him, doing some cool stuff. And Paul really, really loved Philemon. I mean, he was one of the greatest guys that Paul would tell anybody to go meet and be with. He had a servant or a slave back in that day. His name was Onesimus. And this guy ended up running away, and in some accounts that you'll read online, they say that he actually stole some stuff from Philemon when he took off. So Philemon, as you can imagine, would be a little irritated with this dude. Like, if you ever saw him again, it's probably one of those instances where you just punch him in the face or something. But so this is the story of Paul's letter then to Philemon, and that's part of the book. So Travis, you put up 4, Philemon 1:4. We're going to read a little bit. I'm going to break it down a little bit for you guys. All right, so I thank my God always, making mention of you in my prayers. Sorry, we're going to go 4 to 7 on this first. Because I hear of your love and of the faith in which you have toward the Lord Jesus and toward all the saints. And I pray that the fellowship of your faith may become effective through the knowledge of every good thing which is in you for Christ's sake. For I have come to have much joy and comfort in your love, because the hearts of the saints have been refreshed through you, brother. So a lot of Bible scholars and a lot of people that just read these verses would see that as like Paul buttering up Philemon a little bit to kind of sneak something in there. But this is actually not necessarily what he's doing. If you actually read this and you kind of dig into the heart of what Paul was going for here, he was basically calling Philemon out and who he knows he is. Because anytime we're about to hear some hard news, it's always nice to hear something good about you. You know, like if I'm talking to Ben over here, and let's say he started a Rogaine regimen and he wants to grow some hair, and I go up to him, I'm like, dude, man, that's kind of patchy and jacked up looking. You want to do something about that? You know that's not going to be well received. But if I go up to him and I'm like, Ben, I love you. You are an awesome dude, and your views on life are amazing. But this ain't really working out, man. You want to do something about that? That would be much more well received. You know, like he would actually be like, you got a point. I've been trying something. I'll just go ahead and get rid of that. Yep. All right. So let's go to verse 10. This is the next part of this. I appeal to you for my child Onesimus, whom I have begotten in my imprisonment, who formerly was useless to you, but now is useful both to you and me. I have sent him back to you in person, that is, sending my very heart, whom I wish to keep with me, so that on your behalf he might minister to me in my imprisonment for the gospel. So in this one, he's explaining the relationship that he and Onesimus have basically developed over the course of their imprisonment together. Paul sees Onesimus on the same level as he sees Philemon at this point. Like in Onesimus, he has recognized the bits of Jesus, like he's pulled those bits of Jesus out of him in his relationship with him, and he sees that Onesimus and Philemon are on the same level. Like these guys are two cookies cut from the same mold. And so Paul is imploring Philemon. He's basically saying, hey, I'm sending this guy back to you, and when I send him to you, I am sending you my heart, just as you are my heart as well. You guys, you got it going on. So on to 14. There it goes. But without your consent, I did not want to do anything, so that your goodness would not be in effect by compulsion of your own free will. For perhaps he was for this reason separated from you for a while, that you would have him back forever. No longer as a slave, but more than a slave, a beloved brother, especially to me, but how much more to you, both in the flesh and in the Lord. So not only is he asking him to take him back into his household, but he's asking him to take him back not as a slave anymore, not as just some dude that used to work for you, but as an equal, as a brother, not only in the Lord, but in life. Like, take him back the way you would receive me. And that would be hard. Because think back on what Onesimus did to him whenever he was leaving. He stole some of his stuff and said, I'm out. I'm tired of working for you. And just, rolled. And so that would be hard for anybody to hear, but much less the guy who actually used to own this man and used to care for him. He knew him on a very, very deep level. As a lot of the slaves weren't treated necessarily bad back in those times, because the better you treated your slave, not only the better work you would get out of them, but the longer they would live, so the longer you would have your slave. And then finally we go into 17 through 20. If then you regard me a partner, accept him as you would me. But if he has wronged you in any way or owes you anything, charge that to my account. I, Paul, am writing this to you in my own hand. I will repay it. Not to mention that to you, that you owe me even your own self as well. I probably butchered that a little bit, but next. And then, yes, brother, let me benefit from you in the Lord. Refresh my heart in Christ. So in this last bit, he's basically saying, I understand this guy did some bad stuff to you, and it's hard to forget that. But forgive him. Forgive him for what he did, and if you're having a hard time with that, whatever Onesimus did to you that you can't forgive or that you can't forget, put it on my account. I will bear it on behalf of him, because I love him that much and I love you that much, and I want you guys to restore your relationship with each other. And this is a great analog for what Jesus did for us on the cross. He allows us all to basically, in our relationships, look into each other and find that piece of him in each one of us. And through that, he implores us to forgive those other people, for whatever they did to you. Now, I'm going to read a couple things that I wrote about this, just some thoughts that I had earlier. But even Paul understood that forgetting may never happen, but that the change of heart toward the other person is greater than the power of memory. If you can change your heart toward another person and forgive them in your heart, the memory is going to remain there. And it might be painful and it might suck, but that memory will eventually fade and it will have no power over you because your heart has changed toward that other person. So, it's one of those things where you'll live a longer, healthier life, and so will the person that you're reconciling with, because that won't be weighing you down anymore. You won't be carrying that around like a burden on your back. The appeal, even Paul believed that Onesimus could take over the church for Philemon whenever he decided to retire. That's how much Paul believed in Onesimus, and not only his change, but how much like Philemon he was in their heart relationships. And you see that in 10-11 when he says, I appeal to you for my child Onesimus, whom I have begotten in my imprisonment, who formerly was useless to you, but now he is useful to both you and to me. Because Philemon was getting a little older. He's like, you're going to have somebody that's going to be able to take up your torch and carry it. And honestly, out of all the people in your congregation, the guy that I see most worthy of that is your old servant that rolled out. He is the guy who has got more of your heart than anyone else I've come across. And if you don't mend that relationship, look at what you might be missing out. Look at the amount of healing, the amount of teaching, everything that Onesimus could have brought to the table that Philemon would have been completely closed off to because he wouldn't reconcile with him. So this is a short book on reconciliation, but it's also a cautionary tale of not looking into someone else through your own hurt. If you look at everyone through the lens of Jesus and you apply that to not only your relationships but to reconciling any relationships that you may have that you're a little bitter about, you'll be greater for it in the end because you'll actually pull that piece of Jesus out of them into you, and you'll get to experience that, and it's awesome. So. Mm-hmm.
Man, we got a teacher in Chris Spence. Thank you, man. I was thinking about that role that Paul took in that relationship. So often when we talk about relational triangles, we always talk about how they're not good. How we usually bring a third person in to complain about somebody else or to vent about somebody else to that third person. Or instead of going directly to that person, we bring another person in. And that third person usually isn't a good part. But Paul took on a completely different role in that triangle. He actually took on the role, like you just described, of being a Jesus figure in that, of reconciling and showing Phil that Onesimus had Phil's heart. But Phil was so frustrated and offended at what Onesimus had done in the end that he couldn't see that his friend actually had his own heart. So, I think that's a really strong encouragement. We did this last year, and we're also talking about it this year, that one of the things we encouraged you to do was to reconcile broken relationships in your life. Sorry. Might as well finish the job. Didn't realize there were waters down there. So, not only are you I think, tasked with reconciling relationships in your own life, but if you know that there are two people in your life that you could be a bridge for, be Paul. See them. Because I think Paul took this beautiful perspective of seeing both Onesimus's and Phil's heart. You need a short one for Onesimus. Can you come up with a short name for him? One. O and Phil. Yeah. What Paul did was Paul was able to see both of their hearts. And in the letter, you see this beautiful Jesus heart to reconcile. So do that as well. Now, you can't want for someone else what they don't want for themselves. How many people have discovered that? Okay? I have, painfully. But you can always show people the opportunity they have in the reconciliation process. So be Paul in that case. So thank you. That was a really beautiful perspective. Let me think of a couple things. Like each person who was sharing tonight. Oh, okay, so I'll start with Maddie. Does anybody have questions about what our Koinonia family gathering is? Like the vision of it? Do you understand why we do it and what our vision for it is? If you don't, be honest and raise your hand so I can re-describe it to you. Okay, 1. Should I just have... Okay, good. All right, see? There we go, a little participation. So there aren't... Okay, I'm just going to speak frankly. There aren't many churches like World Harvest in the earth. And I'm a little sad about that and proud about that at the same time, because I actually think what we have here is pretty special. And the goal of a Koinonia family gathering is to share this culture with as many people as possible, this culture of the Father's heart. And since it's you 3 that raised your hands, I'm just going to look at you guys while I talk, okay? So people from other parts of the world and this nation have kind of caught through relationship glimpses of the love of the Father, and through us or through relationships that we have with each other. And as a result of those relational connections and time spent with them, we invite them to come twice a year and be part of kind of this culture and the worship experience, the relational spirit that's involved with this culture. Because, I mean, for those of you that have been in other churches recently, the culture is different here. And it's purposely different. It's like, is Gary here? Yeah. When Gary first came here, he would call it like, this is a Hallmark movie, is this real? Because everybody was hugging each other and he actually thought it was really weird. I think he's finding that, first of all, it's real. It is authentic. We actually do love one another. It's not perfect by any means. Those of you that are in this room all know by now who is not perfect. Thank you for releasing us from that pressure. But we're all growing in what it means to love one another. And so, for me, Koinonia family gatherings are a twice-a-year opportunity for all of our relationships to have the opportunity to come and be a part of what you all are a part of every week. And this particular one is going to be focused more on teaching. In previous ones we've done, how many have we done? Does anybody know? 4, 5, 6? First one was 2014 in the fall. Okay, so more than a couple. And usually when we do them, we don't do any teaching. We do a lot of relational connection, we do some discussions, and we do lots of worship. This is the first time we felt like it was important to gather as many people as possible and do teaching, foundational teaching, on what it means for God to be Father and for us to be sons and daughters. Because still the paradigm is, very strong in church culture of we're believers, we're disciples, and He is God. And that creates, just by definition, this gap of relationship. And so when we're when He's Father and we're sons, that gap closes. At least it's supposed to. Unfortunately, there's a lot of earthly definition of Father and Son that's actually even more separated than God and disciple. So we want to heal all of that in the culture of Father and Son. And so the idea of sonship, this concept of sonship, that our identity is actually sons, according to Hebrews, according to many places in Romans and everywhere else in the New Testament, we want to solidify that and also give relational context for that, where we're not just teaching, but then we're going to sit down in smaller groups and we're going to talk about that and feed back to each other and even minister literally the spirit of the love of the Father into people through our love for them. We believe it's our love for one another that ministers the love of the Father to people. I've seen it in my life in hundreds and hundreds of cases, both individually, through teaching, through worship, all of that. So Koinonia is an opportunity for us to get everybody that has ever wanted to be a part of it to come together and do that. This particular one, there'll be a lot of teaching, and we're also inviting many other relationships kind of outside of Koinonia. Family. Koinonia is kind of like this blanket term that we use. It means family, it means communion, it means a context of love biblically, it means relationship. But we also have relationships kind of outside of this context, and we wanted to bring them in so they can start experiencing some of these foundational principles. So we invited Harold Eberly to come because his teaching on Father and Son theology is very foundational to our understanding of the Father's love. We're bringing Randall Worley in, who's a friend of ours from South Carolina, who also has a very unique perspective of the Father's heart, as well as myself and Randy and Steve and Ben, and even some other guys that we've met over the years here are going to come together, and we're going to do workshops for 3 days, lots of relational time together, and then Friday and Saturday night. Maddie, are you close? Worship on Friday and Saturday nights. Am I missing anything? I think that's it. So it's like a huge family reunion for us, but my goal and my desire is that all of us participate in this. Because for me, it only makes, I'm going to tell you, wherever I go outside of this town, this family, the only real context I have where this spirit and this anointing and this teaching makes sense is you all. The reason why I feel so confident to go do an SOS last weekend in North Carolina, the only reason why I feel confident to go somewhere else, Ukraine, Costa Rica, another town, and teach on this is because I believe in you. So then when I have the confidence to invite every single person that I know in my life to come be here, I want you here too. Like, I don't want it to be a separate event from you. I want Koinonia Family Gathering. You're the reason why it works. You have proven the Father's love. You have, it's going to sound like a strange term, you've ingested his love, you've digested it, and you've made it a part of who you are. So you're the context for this. So it's so important that you're also a part of this too. I don't know how else to say this other than I long for you to be a part of that with us. I don't want you to think, oh, that's the weekend where I can't be here because all these other people come and it's not about me anymore. Actually, it is. It's about you turning from being the receptor to being the giver. There are so many people like, oh my God, this is overwhelming me. They don't get this every week. There are a lot of people that are coming that are like in Romania that are coming because not only do they not even have evangelical church, they don't have anything. And for them to come and to live for 4 or 5 days in a culture of the Father's love will be like water in a desert for them. And then they're going to go back filled, and you're going to do that filling. It's not going to be us with microphones. It's going to be you. So I don't know how else to say it. I want the whole world to experience you. They would. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I imagine it'd be an incredible environment where
Mm-hmm.
so free and so available to everybody. We want how we want to hear. It's got to be.
John, I'm really glad you said that because that is something else that is unheard of, not just in churches across the world, but even in a lot of churches here, is your opportunity to share. You know, in most churches, the people that come to church never open their mouths except to the people that they sit right next to. Here, this is yours. And we strongly encourage you to share what's on the inside of you with all of us. So that openness, when they get to start sharing what's inside of them, we'll get blessed too. Don't get me wrong. It won't be just a one-way street. We're going to get an incredible benefit of the family from across the world. But really, they're going to come in here pretty hungry. And you're the table. And you're the food. So, do you have any other questions? Are you good? Chuck?
Yeah, one thing as you were speaking, it hit my heart, and I don't know that it applies to many people here to coordinate as deeply, but it's really a great opportunity for people here to get more connected to the family. I've heard responses sometimes go both ways on this topic, like, oh, why are these weekends so promoted? And, I would say this is a great opportunity for you to get deeper relationships with people here because you're really connecting for a long period of time. Everyone's really got an open heart to be here. So use this as an opportunity to meet new people, to meet people. I mean, to go into a crowd of people that are international, if you don't know them or aren't from here, to really build a relationship that way. And I would encourage the core people here, if you know other people that call who their family, that maybe are on the edge of they don't feel they're as connected here as they'd like to, they see the connection but feel they're not always brought into it. This is the best weekend to be connected. There's nothing like the relationships that get built with the Father and each other over this weekend that will really propel you forward here the rest of the time.
Thank you. Yeah, plus the joined anointing of all of these other people combining with ours, it's just this thick, syrupy weekend of the Father's anointing among us. It's strong. And it lasts a lifetime. Like it permanently impacts my life and changes me. So I strongly encourage every single person in this room to register for that event. Even if you can't make all of it, even though I would strongly encourage you to make all of it, it's going to be so worth it. I actually think it's one of the expansion opportunities this family has. I mean, how many, usually it would be a couple of us jumping on a plane and flying somewhere, or jumping in a car and driving somewhere. The nations in this nation are coming to us. What an opportunity to plant our heart in the hearts of others, and then they spread out. It's an incredible opportunity. So, okay, that was Quinninia. I'm going to do you in the thing. Oh, the kids, the parents, the kids thing. So this month we have been focusing on family. We've only done one sermon so far on it. And, you know, it was Ben or Jan, one of you made the comment about asking Kendall or Jocelyn, so tell me about my kids. This is something that I have found so valuable. People loving my children like I do. I don't think you realize how valuable that is. There are actually people in the world that love your children like you do. It's true. And if you don't believe it, talk to him. If you don't believe it, spend 5 minutes with Jocelyn, and you will actually feel convicted about your own love for your children. You'll be like, oh crap, I think I need to go home right now. I'm serious. It's that level of intense devotion that they have to our children. So when you know someone else other than you loves your children like that, you should be asking them, tell me about my kids. I want to hear your perspective of my children. And then listen, take notes in your heart so that you can go home. Because sometimes our perspective can get clouded by familiarity. I actually think some of the reason why maybe you're not as excited to be a part of the Who family as maybe you always could be is because of the same reason. Let's be honest, familiarity sometimes blinds us from the incredible value that's available. So, you know, to Kendall, to Jocelyn, who can't hear me right now, but hopefully will listen later, thank you for loving our children. Yeah, even differently than we do, but I know you love them like I do. So thank you. Yeah, I know it is. That's why I know you love them. It's not a job to you. So thank you. I also wanted to make sure that anyone here that wanted to share on anything or ask a question about anything that's been shared so far has the opportunity to do so. So did anything that was shared before bring up something that you wanted to share or ask a question about? This is family. And we're a happy family. And happy families dialogue. Yeah, John.
I better break you here again.
I didn't know if you wanted the world to hear you.
No, I'm good sitting right here. You know, I came, I think it was not last weekend, but the weekend before, I grabbed the mic and I stood up in front of everybody and I was talking about what drew me to this church. And sometimes standing up there under the lights.
Yeah, hold on. I want that time.
It's a little hard to articulate, you know, when you got the music and everybody's looking at you, you know, and it's like, ooh. But I wanted to reiterate that point, that what drew me here, and nothing else could have done this. Nothing else could have drawn me to come back to a church after having been to a number of churches and experienced what I did. But the sense of family and love that you can feel and see that is visible here in a very huge way when you look around these group of people. And listening to even sermons about that subject, about Christians in a church and their love for one another, it is very rare that it exists. Not just in an emotional sense, but a visible, real one that a person walking in the room can see. And it's also very rare that somebody is brought back to a church or brought back to faith because of it. And there's two things here, that it is here, it is visible, it is something you can see, and it is exactly what drew me back to walk into the doors of a church again and sit down and be part of a community of Christian people. You know, and it's just such a big deal, and it's such a huge thing to me. Every time I think about it, you know, and I think specifically I'd mentioned that, you know, in the upper room discourse that Christ told his disciples, I'll give you a new commandment, love one another. You know, arguably the most important thing the most important commandment that he'd ever given, the most important commandment in all of the Bible, is that we love one another. And to see it on such a visible, real scale is just a magnet, you know, to people who are looking for that. And it's amazing.
I love that the first Sunday you were here, you just opened up and started sharing. Okay, so did you want to say something to that? You want to talk first? You're like literally on the edge of your seat. Oh, you're sitting on water bottles. Okay. Don't let your water break. Are you pregnant? Anyway, okay. I am so sorry I said that. No, I'm not. It's fun. There's a reason why we're not afraid of the open mic, okay? And this might be a little scary to you, but we actually trust you. We believe here that trust is offered, not earned. How else will you earn trust if it's not offered? And if you make a mistake and screw it up and act like an idiot, or at least outside of the culture we've created here, then it's okay. And we'll figure it out. And we've had it, trust me. We've had people take this microphone, and it's kind of like everyone's like, what are we going to do now? And it's so beautiful. I'll never forget the one time someone came up and kind of did a little political rant on where they were, and Chuck took the microphone. I'll never forget this as long as I live. And he just brought the Father's heart right back in. He never even brought any correction, never said anything. He just brought it right back in to the Father's heart. And it was just like, oh, we're back. And it was just the fact that Chuck opened his heart right after someone just kind of ranted their emotional feelings. It was beautiful. So we also believe that there is Jesus locked up in you, and that if you open yourself up, we believe we're going to find him. Even if it's amongst some other stuff, we're willing to dig with you to find him in the midst of what you're sharing. So trust us enough that we're going to receive you in the heart of the Father. And we're going to listen for the Lord, even in the midst of your whatever it is. You might be rambling. Trust me, you ramble sometimes. If you don't know you ramble, you do. Because I do. I know I do too. But look for the Lord in our rambling, because he's there and he's beautiful. Is there anything else you want to say to it? I'm sure there is. I can feel you. I can feel you like, you're not done.
I would also say the other thing is, like, things that are said here on the microphone that need to be dealt with, we get to deal with together. And it's actually really, like, if somebody says something that's really awesome and says it on the mic, we all get to, like, partake of that. That's awesome. But in fear of the things that we don't want to deal with together, we totally shut, like you said, we totally shut down the mic and nobody has an opportunity. So now we have no opportunity for feast, and it's all famine. All right? I'm actually not worried about things that are said on the mic, because we could actually do things together with those things. I'm actually scared of the conversations that happen in dark corners. That's the ones I worry about. Because, I mean, the ones that happen in dark corners that don't have any guidance and don't get any light shed on them, those are the ones that start to fester and start to create little things that grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. That's why I'm never going to be afraid of an open mic, because ultimately we all get to hear it. And you know what, something? Isn't it amazing? Like, something said on an open mic that's totally off, everybody's like, that's off. That's off. Like, we don't even have to spend a lot of time, like, saying, this is why it's off, and these are the 7 scriptures of why it's off. You're like, yeah, that's off. We're good. We're good? Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. But it's these things that we get to learn and grow. So I know it's weird for some people, and it's something that we probably even need to teach our people on Sunday. But what I would say is you can help us teach that, because we don't need to always do that and talk about on a mic. You can do that one-on-one while things are happening, and you can actually go up and have a conversation and say, hey, this is why we're not afraid. It's for everything that Mark said. We trust you. We know that there's the Father in you, that there's Jesus in you that we want to see, and we want to do this thing together as a family. So you could definitely help us in pushing that culture forward more.
I just wanted to say something because this was very impactful to me. It's probably the 3rd or 4th koinonia we had, and we were talking about this topic of open mics. And, you know, Randy had brought up a point that was, and I think this is good for the core if you haven't heard this, because this is something we can all do together. He said, you know, if someone does go off track, like stay engaged with the Lord, because there was a tendency, and I know I had it, to be like, oh, I was just having great worship, and now this person said something, and I'm out of where I was, and I walk away, and I'm mad. And it actually, in a corporate setting, you can feel that whole shift. But I think if we all, especially as a core here, like say, you know what, when I notice that moment happening, like I'm going to stay engaged with the Lord, whether it's with the Lord or listen to what they're doing, whatever you need to do, like don't let one person pull an atmosphere down. Because I think we can all stay engaged and trust that someone's going to bring the situation around. If it's not, then someone will address that later somehow. But like, try to keep the environment going, that was set, and don't let that be a hindrance. Yeah.
To this, so I'm glad it's on topic. But at the end of the week, a video is going to post from Matt and Amber at the end of our last time together. Matt and Amber, we're going to share about testimonies. We ran out of time. But they are sending out this really great thought about testimonies, and I just wanted to mention that because I think that's such an important part of our time together. Whether they're on the microphone or not, just remembering, and like even when we're coming in together, to constantly be turning our heart toward what is the active work of Jesus in me right now? What can I share? What have I seen? What have I experienced of him, being willing to offer that? And then, I think the microphone can make us scared, and we don't even think about how foolish it is to be afraid of being louder. It's just amplifying what's coming out of you. It's not changing anything about it. It's just making it louder so that more people can hear it. And the reason we do it, for the camera. But Chuck said, don't let one person bring down an atmosphere. If we're connected as a family, we can also take a risk on the microphone and trust that if it's a mistake, the family's going to sustain. And we have the room here to be amplified, to offer our heart on the microphone. And if it was a flop, which I have done, and many in this room have done, if it's a flop, he's done, then the family just holds it up, and then the Holy Spirit in us just absorbs it. It doesn't have to. I love that. So I just wanted to express, I personally crave hearing the stories of Jesus in all of you. I crave it. Jen shared, she sent out late last week the story of how the Holy Spirit helped her parent, and I just fed on that to know Holy Spirit can guide my instincts like that. And I think that's how we strengthen ourselves in the Lord, when we turn our attention to the stories of Jesus to build up our faith, to watch him at work. I think it's so powerful. So please don't neglect that, whether it's here publicly or whether it's interpersonally or on Facebook or however you want to start doing that, but please tell your stories, small ones and big ones. You want this?
While somebody was talking earlier, I don't know if you heard my phone go off, and when a phone goes off, you kind of panic a little bit, because I'm on call 24/7 anyway. I get this call from this woman who has kind of a broken talk. I couldn't understand what she was saying, but I thought it sounded like she had something of mine, and so I go back to Giant, and I'd been there to grab some supper before coming here. She had my checkbook. So this woman had my checkbook, and she calls me, and I go get it, and I'm back here. But I see that Jesus, it just blew me away.
Thank you. I'm assuming your phone number's on your checks?
Yes.
All right. That'd be cool if she's like, Jesus. One other thing, on the kids stuff and the family thing for this weekend, or this month, excuse me. So last weekend I shared about when you first get married and then when the young children come along. It's going to sound like I'm tooting my own horn here, and I'm really not, but that was really important. We talk a lot here about how wisdom is foundational. And how oftentimes what happens is we kind of start things without the right foundation, and we just have some good ideas and some vim and vigor, and or like if it's marriage, hey, she's cute and he's got some money, so let's get married, whatever it is. And it's after the fact that we realize, ooh, I'm not so, is that kind of how it worked there? Yeah? Okay. $1 bills. Okay. And then you realize after you're like 3.5 kids in, oh my goodness, maybe we should have gotten some. Anyway, I strongly encourage you, if you didn't, you can apply this wisdom now, but get the wisdom early. The Bible says in Proverbs that the Lord founded the earth in wisdom. That by wisdom, the foundations of the earth were laid. That's actually how it's worded. So wisdom is foundational. You start with wisdom. You don't get halfway through having kids or being married and then suddenly seek out wisdom how to be married. I promise you, there's way too much water under the bridge. There's way too much damage done. And now you're getting wisdom. Wisdom doesn't fix stuff. Wisdom starts. Okay? Oftentimes, wisdom will actually let a thing fall apart completely so it can build right. Now, I'm not saying that means marriages need to fall apart and you need to let your kids completely fall apart. But in some cases, you're going to have to let a situation completely die in order to build rightly. So, I'm saying all this to say this, like what we talked about on Sunday is really foundational. So this Sunday, we're talking about marriage and the adolescent years. So both how to stay married when you have adolescent kids and how to parent adolescent children. And if you're not there yet, you should have a blank notebook and a fresh pen. Because you're going to want wisdom before that season happens in your life. Please, hear my heart. I don't want you to suffer. That's the heart of the Father for you. I don't want your kids to suffer. I don't want your marriage to suffer. You weren't created to suffer through seasons. You were created to succeed and to thrive and to sow your seed into the earth. And you can't do that when you're barely treading water. Okay? So please I tell you that. I listened to the message from Sunday for myself. That's going to sound really weird, isn't it? But I actually got stuff by listening to it. It's that important. So, back to the whole familiarity thing. Please just don't take it for granted what's being offered to you here. It is really important and special. Okay. So, I'm going to share with you a piece of a prophetic word I received. And it's a really small piece of a very... Look, I have been in the Christianity, Spirit-filled church type stuff since I was saved, which is over 28 years. And I've never gotten a prophetic word like this. And I received it a little over a month ago. Let me guess, yeah. Yeah, almost a month ago. And you know it's probably the Lord when the word scares you. Have you ever had one of those? Like someone comes to you and actually shares some things that the Lord when showing it actually scares you. Well, this thing, it does that. It scares me. So I'm not going to share with you yet because I want to share it with certain people in my life first before I share it with all of you. So the person shares the word with me, and then in the word toward the end is what it's going. At the beginning, it's what we've already done so that the word can come to pass. And then it's what needs to be done yet for the word to be fulfilled and to walk in it, okay? And just so you all know, you know of me, if prophecy doesn't involve me, it's not prophetic. It can't be just what the Lord's doing. It's got to be what he and I are going to do together, what you and I and him are going to do together. And this word fulfills every, I believe, right standard for prophetic ministry. So I know this is from the Lord. But there's this one piece here as part of the preparation process continuing for this word to see its fruit in the world. It says this: great maturity will have to come, and many will have to step into roles they have been reluctant to accept. There will have to be others who are sent to help because of the people that are reluctant. Please receive them as if they're coming from the Lord himself. there can be no possessiveness of material or spiritual ground. So I heard that, and it's still reverberating in my spirit, the rest of this word, and you will hear this word soon, I promise you. But in the meantime, I just wanted to focus on great maturity will have to come, and many will have to step into roles they have been reluctant to accept. And because of the reluctance, the Lord's going to have to send others. So first of all, I want to talk to all of us here for a couple of minutes, because I'll be honest with you, I'm even one of the reluctant. I'm going to include myself in that category, because I know some of the things that I need to walk in and do and be a part of that reluctance is probably not even the right word. It's going to take bravery. It's going to take stuff that I haven't, there's more in me that it's going to have to bring up in order for me to carry it and do it. You understand what I'm trying to say? The words aren't coming, but I think you're getting my point. Some of the stuff that I know I need to do is going to take stuff I haven't banked on in my own life yet. It's going to have to bring it up, and I'm going to have to step out. And it's a little scary, and it's causing me to be reluctant, but I know it's good. And so I'm going to take this period of time that's in front of me, and I don't know how long I have it, but I'm going to start living my life like this day is the most important day of my life. And I'm going to start stepping into things. And I do that because I want this great maturity in my life. I do. So when I read those words, great maturity will have to come, and many will have to step into roles they've been reluctant to accept, I heard the cry for sons. Sons that were willing to take on the Father's heart. And not just the Father's heart, but the Father's kingdom. Because the Father handed the kingdom to his Son. That's what he did. And he said when he was baptized, "This is my Son, listen to him. This is my Son in whom I'm well pleased." You don't realize, but in Jewish custom, that means it's his. The kingdom is his. If you want to enter it, you got to enter it through him. If you want to do business with me as the Father, you've got to do it with him. It happens through and in the Son. And then Jesus says at the end of John, just as the Father has sent me, so it's in us. That same weight, that same covenant that the Father made with Jesus, he's making with us through and in Jesus, that weight of the kingdom now resides in and upon us. So, let me read these verses to you, okay? If you want to go there, you can. It's Matthew 11:28. By the way, how many people were here for the last Bible study? Raise your hand. Okay, keep your hands up. People who are here for the last Bible study, raise your hand. Look around the room, people who are raising their hands. Come on, do it. Look around the room. You can blame everyone else not raising their hands for me repeating myself. Because I'm repeating myself on what I said in Bible study. So you're going to have to deal with it. It'll be all right. So that was guilt. That was flat out mom guilt laid on every one of you that didn't come to Bible study. Oh, it's so mom guilt. Yes, don't you look at me like that. That's a mom trying to deny mom guilt. Oh, that wasn't bad enough. Oh, I'm not even scratching the surface of mom guilt, am I? Oh, I get it. Okay, thank you. Whew, some areas I don't want to get to. That's good. I love that. Matthew 11, verse 28. And I would have more to preach to you, but my laptop died. So you're going to have to deal with my memory. Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Oh, gosh, that's powerful. I love that. And the world will do this to us. Our relationship with the world, our connection, affiliation, and allegiance with the world will add all kinds of stuff to our life we were never meant to carry. Someone say amen. All right, because that's why Jesus said, look, you are heavy laden with sin. You are weary because of carrying a false identity and wrong allegiances and covenants and connections you've created you were never meant to have. If you come to me, I can take all that off of you and I will make you new and you'll be a new creature in me. And all of that sounds like rest, and it sounds like, oh man, that feels so good. And Jesus did do that for me. When he lifted the burden of sin off of me, and even again in 2011 when I met him as Father, I met Jesus in 1990. I literally had an encounter with the Father in 2011, and I felt like I got saved again. I felt like I got born again. We're a whole new level of burden. And this time it was the burden of pastoring and ministry and the prophetic and performing for all of you got lifted off of me. And now I don't have to perform for you anymore. I get to be myself right here in front of you. Exactly how I act at home is how I act with you. Aren't you glad? So I love verse 28. It feels free. It feels like, yes, I'm free and I can be myself. And then, 29. I didn't try that. I don't know. Then. Okay. Now I'm going to take advantage of this. This is good. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Whoa, wait a minute. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Here, there's a couple things. First of all, I realize here, he takes a wrong burden off so he can put a right burden on. See, getting saved and walking with the Lord and having your sin removed doesn't mean like, woohoo, I'm free, I can do whatever I want now. I don't, no worries, no burdens, no yoke. No, you just get the one you were always meant to have. The realization comes that we're actually still supposed to carry something. It's his yoke. And like I talked about in Bible study last week, I believe the yoke he's talking about is not the cross that he died on. I believe it's him as a son. His yoke, his burden is his sonship. What it means to be a son of the Father in heaven. That's the yoke that's easy and the burden is light. Now I want you to understand the word easy does not mean, oh, it's like eating cake every day. Chocolate cake. That's not the kind of yoke, that's not the kind of easy he's talking about here. Easy meaning you are well prepared for it. That's what the word easy means. It actually means my yoke you are well prepared for. The grace that he provides is for the burden or the yoke that was meant to be upon you. And I submit to you that the burden is not some plan or not some specific call on your life. I actually believe the burden you were meant to carry is your identity as a son or daughter of the Father. And that identity will do things. That's the identity. That's the burden. That's the yoke that's upon us here. And he says, you will find rest for your souls. The burden prior gave me no rest. I don't know about anybody else. But these burdens that the world and I have created for me don't give me a lot of rest at all. In fact, it causes all kinds of anxiety and all kinds of restlessness, keeps me awake at night, wakes me up. It causes me all kinds of stuff inside. But the burden of sonship, the burden of being the Father's son or daughter brings rest to our souls. It doesn't mean we don't do anything. It means deep on the inside of us, there's this foundational peace and rest that comes along with this burden. So far, so good? Yeah. So what I'm discovering as I mature and as I grow is that I still have a lot to do. And I have a weight of responsibility to carry. And as I'm walking with the Lord, I realize that that doesn't get lighter, it actually gets heavier. Like I feel the increasing weight of what it means to be a son upon my shoulders. And I'm going to be real with you guys here for the next couple of minutes. I want you to feel the weight. I don't want you to get away with an easy life when you could have had a great one. So as a member of this family, I want to talk to you as a dad for just a couple of minutes, because I want the rest of this prophetic word. I want it. And I can promise you, if you were to hear the rest of it, which you will someday, you want it too. but it's going to require more of you than anything else you've ever done in your life. I actually believe that what you were created for will bring you more fulfillment than a lot of the other things that you're currently covenanted to do. I just made a word up. And here's the problem. Like when I was listening to Aaron talk about that we're $5,000 short in giving, and like I have no idea if it's because whatever the situations might be that the reason why we're not giving or whatever it is. I think a lot of the reason why giving is a burden is because we have not released the burdens we're supposed to release. We struggle because we haven't released Matthew 11:28. We get saved, we get born again, we come to Jesus, and it's this incredible thing. He doesn't make us drop anything. It's still our choice to let things go. You can bring in your false identity and he accepts you. You can bring in your stuff and he accepts you. This is what Jesus does with us. He forgives us. And he offers us abundant life. All of it's an offer. All of it's a, here if you want it, here it is. And then we can choose to still carry the burdens of this world and of all the accompanying stuff that goes along with it. And then we bring that all in. And then some dude stands up with a microphone and says, hey, I think you ought to give. Or, hey, I think you ought to come with me on a missions trip. Or, hey, I think you ought to be involved here. Or, hey, there's more inside of you than this. And there's something on the inside of you that goes, are you kidding me? I am maxed. Can we take that out? Can we take some of that out? Because I'm really not trying to be effect, but there's like this echo that sounds like heaven. It's in my voice, and I'm like, anyway, I don't mind dramatic, but I get concerned that when I talk this way, many people begin to tune out because they think, Mark, I can't do anymore. I had someone message me today. I have so much going on in my life that I get anxious even reading Facebook because they're involved in some things and they had to read some messages, and some of those messages were things that they needed to be involved in, and to read that would just max them beyond their max. That's a concern for me. As a friend, as a father, as someone who loves them, somewhere along the line, they've added too much to their life. Because when I actually believe Matthew 11:28. I believe Jesus did come to take our burdens. And I believe he did come to give us his yoke and his burden. And it is light and it is easy. And it does give rest to our soul. So when I talk to a believer, when I talk to a son and daughter who is anxious and stressed and concerned, and then I get a prophetic word like this, I'm just going to be real with you. I lack faith. I lack faith because I know what it's going to take for that word to come to pass. God is not just going to go poof, and it's going to happen. It's going to take us. Great maturity is going to be required. People who are reluctant to take roles will have to take those roles for this kingdom to be established and advanced in the earth. And I get concerned that when I begin to share these things, some people are just going to tune out because all of their stuff is like, okay, look, it took all I had to get here tonight. I'm going to be real with you. We've got to get past, it takes all I have to get to a church service. Guys, if getting to a church service is maxing us out, we've got issues. Because this isn't even the kingdom. This is church. The kingdom takes much more than coming to church. The kingdom takes investment. The kingdom takes time. The kingdom takes money. Kingdom takes our heart. The kingdom says, you can't hold on to that stuff and do my heart. And believe it or not, I'm not yelling at you. I'm actually just impassioned. Because I want this. I've seen his heart. I know what he's after. I know what he wants. And it takes more than just barely dragging our butts into a purple chair. It takes stepping up, standing up, and saying, you know what? A lot of the things that I've given my life to, I've given my money to, I've given my attention to, are simply taking and stealing from my true identity as a son. And I won't let it happen anymore. And I'm going to shed these things, and I'm going to be able to stand upright so that the weight of sonship rests fully on me. And then I can walk as a son in the earth, and then incredible stuff will start to happen. And I know it's a lie, okay? What I'm about to say is I know is a lie, but I've got to say it anyway. Sometimes I feel alone. I feel like there's not enough people. I've had this word for like I said, almost a month, and I've only shared it with my wife and family. I'm honestly afraid that if I share this word with you, one of two things is going to happen. Whatever, just another prophetic word, because we are so zoned out by and I want to say a very specific word, in our life. We've got so much stuff. We've got so much other things. Mark, right now, I can't even think about what you're saying because I have this, and this going on in my life right now. That's my one fear. And the second fear is if I share it with you, it'll crush you. Because it takes so much more commitment. That word reluctant, I think, was a very well-chosen word. And I don't think it's reluctant so much out of fear. Because when I look around the room, I don't see very many fearful people. I don't see you fearful. I do see you indecisive. Can I be real with you? Can I be open with you? I see you as indecisive about whether or not I want to let go of things I like. I want to let go of things that seem important for the things that actually matter. I don't want to be alone. And look, I'll be the first to say I probably haven't given up everything yet. That's why I said in the beginning of this, I know what it's going to take yet. And I've given up a lot. Some of my closest ones will tell you what I've given up already. And I want to tell you what I have given up so far has been well worth the giving up. But there is more for us. And I'm asking you to take on his yoke and his burden. But here's the thing, because what's going to happen is this burden of sonship, if it comes and begins to rest upon our shoulders, but there's other stuff that's not related to our identity between us and this burden, it will crush us. And it will feel like we're being literally killed. And our souls won't feel rest. And here's the thing, we will attribute it to our sonship. We'll attribute it to, oh, Mark's piling more crap on me. Now I got to go home and figure it. No, that's what you'll think is the problem. The problem is what's in between you and the real burden. You see, this grace that Jesus gives you is not for the life you're so desperately trying to hold on to. This grace that he's giving you is for the life you're always meant to live. But until we're willing to let go of all affiliations with that false identity, this world connection that we've created. And I can get details if you wanted to, but I really want the Lord to tailor this to your life. If we truly ask the Lord, all of my commitments, all of my affections, I lay them before you today. Have your way with them. I dare you to do that. Every one of us in this room. Every connection, every affiliation, every affection. Lay it before the Lord. Lord, what do you have to say about this? And then let him honestly feed back, and then trust that he will. And then if he says you can let that go, let it go. Because I promise you, the freedom and the rest that comes with his yoke and his burden will not only bring fulfillment to you, but will change the world. And I am not talking grandiose for effect. I know it will. I don't know how else to say this. I need you. We can't just be consumers anymore. We can't just come in and sit in a chair and wait for the next message and wait for the next thing and then to go back to our work or go back to... We need more of you than that. We are tasked. What time is it? Am I okay? I have no idea. Who cares? Okay. We are tasked with something greater than having a church in Chambersburg. I need you guys to know this. We're tasked with something much more important, of much greater weight. Honestly, it's not about, hey, how can we grow our church in Chambersburg? What can we do to get more people in the church? I don't even think that way. I think it's just going to happen because of the greater understanding we have of who we are in the earth. I actually think this family can bring Romans 8 to fulfillment, where we satisfy the groaning of the earth. I really think we can. But it's going to require more than a couple of us. And it's going to take more than, you know what, Mark? If I don't have anything going on this weekend, I'll be there. Hey, if it works into my schedule, I'll help. No, this is the schedule. His heart should be our schedule. Is that okay? It's going to take that level of repentance. For me, repentance is no longer about sin. That's baby stuff. Repentance now is about how I live my life, how I actually think as a son. Do I think of myself as a teacher, as an engineer, as an insurance agent, whatever it is? Or do I think of myself as a son? And when you begin to think of yourself as a son, so many things begin to line up inside of you where you begin to realize that is unnecessary. And it's actually weighing me down. No wonder I can't fly. No wonder I don't sleep the way I should. No wonder my health's an issue. I'm willing to bet almost all of our issues are related to burdens we're not supposed to be carrying, connections we're not supposed to be having, affiliations we need to disconnect from, so that we can be more focused on the heart of our Father. Man, Jesus all the time throughout this, look, my business is to do the will of my Father. I am to be about my Father's business. When they thought, what the heck, man, he hasn't eaten all day. He's got to be hungry. He says, are you kidding me? My food is to do the will of my Father. I don't know about anybody else. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And it's not just because I want to stay skinny. It's honestly because I am getting consumed with his heart. And if you would take the time to be consumed with his heart, whatever else you're listening to, whatever else you're giving your time to, whatever else you're putting your eyes on a regular basis, if you would let his heart become an increasing percentage of that time, you will realize the things that don't satisfy you that used to, that you don't need. And then suddenly, the things like I'm sharing with you will start to make sense, and you'll feel something rise up on the inside of you. And then you'll say, hey, is there something you need? And I'll be like, I'll pull out my list. I am waiting for you. I really am. I am waiting for you to decide that maturity is worth it. I'm waiting for you to decide that the burden that I want to hold, that I want to have on my shoulders, is I want to be a son in the earth. And what matters is his heart. Now, here's the thing. Okay, I said all that, and I was really impassioned, and I even kind of cried a little bit and all that stuff. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. Actually, when I look around the room, I actually see that you really want what I'm saying. So I want you to know I recognize that. But I also know that there's some things that compete with what you want. Hello? Yeah, like some of you are thinking right now, okay, actually, that sounds really good, and I'm feeling really invigorated and inspired, but I got to pay the mortgage. Or I really want to do this, or I've really got these things. I believe all that stuff doesn't need to go away. Some of that needs to stay. Like you need to have a house, okay? Because we're going to need your house. I need to put people in your house. I need to put people that don't look like you, smell like you, don't even like your food in your house. So we're going to need that kind of stuff. But there's other things you don't need. And that's all I'm saying. Just submit this to the Lord. Lord, what's on my shoulders that was never meant to be there? What yoke am I carrying that's actually weighing me down? Okay. What time is it? Not bad. Okay, that's pretty good. Whew. Does anybody want to respond? Yeah.
So as you were talking about the yoke and just how heavy the yoke is and the burden, I don't know, it just really struck up in me. I was thinking about like what a yoke is used for, and that it's actually like the type of tool that it is. And when a yoke is ill-fitted, like I started thinking about like oxen and, you know, cattle and pulling stuff. And when a yoke is ill-fitted, that's when it feels like it's heavy and it's too much to bear. And, you know, it just, you know, it rubs and it chafes and it causes more damage than it's supposed to. And it's not that the yoke of sonship is any lighter or it's any easier, but it's because it's fitted. Yeah, it's fitted to who you are and it's fitted to what you're supposed to be doing. So it's not that it's any lighter, but because it fits better, I think it definitely makes the work feel a whole lot easier.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I was thinking one of the other things that Jesus did was he never shied away from telling someone what, like, you know, to rise up out of like fear that they wouldn't. Because if you look at when I guess the rich man, you know, he said, well, the one who said, I've done all these things, what do I need to do? And Jesus said, this is what you need to do. And he still walked away, but Jesus knew that and wasn't afraid to tell him that's what he needed to do anyways, because I guess he would have robbed him of fullness if he didn't even tell him that. And then even the other, the man who wanted to go bury his father afterwards too, you know, Jesus still told him that, and they still chose other ways, but Jesus never shied away from calling them up into fullness.
So I'm not going to shy away.
Don't shy away.
Yeah, I think there's one word that you use in relaying the word that you got that's important that we haven't used in a long time, and it's the word roles. And I think for 7 years we've been afraid of those type of words because under the wrong foundation, those type of words actually get you to perform instead of get you to, you know, excel actually and shine. So this is how I really know that this word is true, because we could use the word roles comfortably, like very comfortably. Because I'll tell you something, with roles, you know what comes with roles? Responsibility, expectation, work, and all those words to a non-son thinking person are burdensome, but to a son, they're actually words of opportunity and inspiration. So we've layered a foundation of 7 years where we can now use a word like roles and see it rightly and actually know that results are a good thing, right? And even something like performance isn't performance in the old religious mindset, but it is, as a son, this is my great performance to you, my father. Like, you know, and he sees it as this amazing display of love. So this is how you know this is real, because we start using words like roles again, and we're not afraid to use them because we're going to be mature enough to use them in right context and right understanding of who we are.
So in FPU, we had an analogy that was just recently brought up, and when Matt mentioned the yoke, or talked about, you know, how the yoke is fitted, I thought it was interesting. I'll just read this real briefly. It's about Belgian draft horses. Competitions are held to see which horse can pull the most, and one Belgian horse can pull 8,000 pounds. The weird thing is that if you yoke two Belgian horses together in harnesses, who are strangers to each other, together they can pull 20 to 24,000 pounds together. So they can triple the amount that they can pull whenever they're yoked together. Two can pull not twice as much, but 3 times as much as one. This example represents the power of synergy. However, if the two horses are raised and trained together, like we have been in the church for 7 years, they think as one. They are trained and therefore unified. The pair can pull 30 to 32,000 pounds, almost 4 times as much as a single horse. So you have some horses.
Keep making the horses wongs. So just a couple things. Like, I'm just going to give you an example of sonship, okay? And it's a simple little example, but it really blessed me this week. So for those of you that know, we have home groups at World Harvest, right? And some are doing okay, some are like, eh. And some other people are still coming in and saying, hey, I want to be a part of home groups. So Ben and Jen have been leading a group for young adults, right? Been doing that real faithfully for, well, I guess about a year now. It's been about a year now. Huh? And you love it. Yeah. So here's an example of sonship. So as we're hearing of some of the home groups starting to kind of like waver and not sure what to do, even one or two of them have kind of dissolved already, you know what they do? They write and say, hey, we'd like to start another one. And we'll just do it once a month, just for connection and all that kind of stuff. And okay, the logistics of that aside, the fact that they offered their hearts in that way was so powerful to me that, I mean, I think about all they're already doing and the things that are already happening through their lives, and they want to add this. And it fits them. So I'm just bragging about you in front of other people right now to say that's sonship. And I honor you. And it's less about the fact that you're adding a thing to your life. It's the willingness to open yourselves up more and bring more people into your hearts. So thank you. So here's one more thing I want to say. Hey, Jim, listen up. I want to say something here. I want you to seriously consider your contribution to the family. I think that's an okay thing to ask you. Because if there are certain members of a family that don't contribute anything, that's dysfunctional. Now, if they're newborns, obviously, like I talked about, they don't do anything, you know. But I don't look like, just looking around this room right now, there's no newborns. I see a lot of strong ones. And I'm asking you to talk to the Lord, not just about what I need to cut, but also what am I contributing? Because if there's one thing I think that sonship requires is I'm only going to consume to the level I contribute. Sons know that if we're going to eat, we're going to help prepare the food, or we're going to help wash the dishes, or you know what I'm saying. I don't need to put 3 analogies in place here. I'm simply asking you to consider your contribution, because it could start as something as simple as what role needs filled, like Ben said. Start somewhere. And I promise you, you have capacity. You do. One of the hardest things I ever said to somebody, and it was like one of the most kindest, gentlest people in my life, was last week at SOS in North Carolina. Gentlest, sweetest soul, and she's crying, and she's breaking down about some things that are really disappointing in her life, and I couldn't help it. This is what I felt so strongly from the Lord to tell her. I looked at her and said, while she was crying, "You're lazy." It took everything on the inside of me to say it. But as soon as I said it, she stopped crying. She realized that a lot of her tears were pity. She told me later. And she all of a sudden was like, literally those words woke her up out of this weird stupor that she had knocked herself into, and she realized, oh my gosh, I've let myself get lazy. And she had all kinds of legitimate, quote, excuses to be lazy. But as soon as those words struck her spirit, she realized none of those reasons were legitimate. So I'm just simply asking you to look at your life and let the Lord look at your life too. And ask the Lord, hey, Lord, is this legitimate? And if it's not, I don't want to be lazy in this anymore. I don't think sons are lazy. And I look, again, around there, I'm not calling anyone lazy in this room. I'm just simply saying that term, when I said that to her, woke her up and realized that some of the things that had knocked her into sleep were unnecessary in her life. And that most of them were beliefs about herself and about the Lord. And actually, it was stuff that she later realized, I know this. Why did I let this stuff get me down? Why did I let this stuff numb me? Some of us have gotten numb by the things that we've given our lives to. Even good things. Like something I love about Amanda Wong, I'll just keep bragging here for a second. I mean, she basically has always been pregnant, like for the last 5 years, right? 4 years, sorry. But is it true? Yes, okay. You've never let it stop you. You've started a business. You've stayed engaged with us as a family. You sing, you worship, you engage us relationally. You haven't let it stop you. And a lot of people, you put a bun in the oven, and suddenly the whole world stops and revolves around this life inside of me. And don't get me wrong, it's incredible what's going on inside of you, but you don't let it be the center of the universe. And as a result, your kids are going to be healthy, powerfully healthy. And they're going to have an understanding of their identity. It's not about them. They'll know who they are without making it about them. So I just want to tell you, that's it. That's sonship. So if you ever wondered, am I even getting this? Am I even doing this? You are. Your life's living it. And so, I mean, for me, that's an incredible, small, natural example of how you can be growing a human being inside of you, which is an absolute miracle, and still be a vital contributor to the community. And not just the community called who? The community. Because don't forget, his eyes, what I said in the Who family page, if you saw it today, his eyes are on the people, this family that he wants to gather together. He is burning with passion for them. Don't microcosm this to being about you. It's about all of us. And make sure your life is about all of us too. Amen? All right. So I just want to thank you for hearing me. I pray that I laid a burden on you. With all seriousness, I prayed I laid a burden on you that was from the Lord. A burden of sonship, a burden of your identity. Don't be slack. Don't be indecisive. Don't be reluctant. Decide to be who you are. Amen? All right. So, Father, thank you for your Spirit. Thank you for the patience here to run us past 8:30 and no one's upset with me. We love you. And we thank you for this privilege to be a son and daughter of who you are. May we carry it well. In Jesus' name. Amen. I love you.